Did you know that Yahweh was not the original name of Israel's God? Well, what was it then? The answer is right in front of our faces. This is part 2 of a series on the gods of ancient Israel, based on Mark Smith's The Early History of God. Last week we covered how, despite the antagonism that the Old Testament showed towards Canaanite religion and culture, the Israelites were quite similar to their polytheistic counterparts. We know this because of archaeological and anthropological studies that revealed similar pottery, architecture, and religious rituals between the two cultures. But what else did they share in common? The head of the Canaanite pantheon of gods was named El, spelled E-L, as in the latter part of the word Israel. That's right, Israel was not named Yahweh, but derived its name from the Canaanite god El. Coincidence? Most likely not. If you read the Bible in Hebrew, you'll notice that sometimes God is referred to as Yahweh, and sometimes he is given titles like El Shaddai or El Elyon, or other names deriving from El. Furthermore, there are older passages in the Old Testament that even distinguish between Yahweh and El. And we know that they're older because their Hebrew is more archaic. Particularly in Deuteronomy, there's a passage that reads, "When the Most High, Elyon, apportioned nations, when he divided humankind, he fixed the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the gods. The Lord's, Yahweh's, own portion was his people, Jacob his allotted share." In this excerpt, El delegates guardianship of Israel to Yahweh, as a father would delegate property to his son. Thus, at least early on in Israel's history, it looks like Yahweh was considered El's son. There are also no polemics against El in the Bible, which is remarkable given the attacks against other gods who were deemed opponents to Yahweh. So, did some Israelites worship two gods, El, the father, and Yahweh, his son? The ancient passage from Deuteronomy would suggest probably yes, but for some reason, not too long after Israel distinguished itself from Canaan, something remarkable happened. There's an interesting passage from Joshua, chapter 22, verse 22, that reads, Eloh Yawheh, in Hebrew, or in English, God of gods is Yahweh. What does this mean? The theory goes that the name El may have come from the Canaanite deity, but it gradually became used as a generic title used to describe God. Think of it like how people say Kleenex now as a generic term for tissues. Even though Kleenex came from a specific brand of tissues, eventually people used it to mean tissue regardless of the brand. Or how folks in the southern United States would often say Coke to refer to any type of soda. By the time the Bible was written, the name El did not refer to a Canaanite deity. It became a generic title for God. There's a passage in Exodus that addresses this, actually. Now this is Yahweh saying to Moses, "I am Yahweh. I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob as El Shaddai," meaning God of the mountains, "but my name Yahweh I did not make myself known to them." This confirms that before God revealed himself to Moses as Yahweh, he was known to Israel as El. So in summary, it seems that El was the original God of Israel. Eventually, as the Israelites distinguished themselves from Canaan, they began worshiping Yahweh. Some considered Yahweh to be El's son, but according to the tradition, when God appeared to Moses, he revealed that he was both El and Yahweh. If this sounds confusing, I don't blame you, but this shift from El to El and Yahweh to only Yahweh occurred over hundreds of years. Now, as any good Catholic knows, it took hundreds of years to understand Jesus' two natures, and it only makes sense that it would have taken the ancient Israelites quite a bit of time to understand who exactly their God was. Anyways, Israel did not simply inherit a title for God from its ancestors. It also absorbed qualities of El into Yahweh. We know this because both El and Yahweh are compassionate, fatherly, merciful, and appear in dreams. They both share similar homes too. Yahweh dwells in a tent, El in a tabernacle. They also reside over cosmic waters. Perhaps most importantly, both El and Yahweh are gods of creation and establishment. As I stated at the beginning of this series, the older perspective in biblical studies was that Israel developed its theology independent from the Canaanites. But here we see how Israelite beliefs in God actually organically evolved from those of Canaanites. Again, the two cultures were still intertwined during the period of Judges, which is affirmed by a passage in Ezekiel which reads, "Thus says the Lord God to Jerusalem, your origin and your birth are the land of the Canaanites." In summary, Israel took Canaan's god El, kept his name as a generic title, and assimilated his qualities into Yahweh. Theologically, we could say that God revealed himself to the first Israelites as El, before revealing his true name, Yahweh, to them over time, but most explicitly to Moses. What does this all mean? Well, it once again shows just how close Israel was to Canaan, culturally and religiously. Theologically, to me, it demonstrates how God revealed himself to humanity before Israel was even established as a people. It shows how ever since the dawn of humanity, God has been present, assuming the titles of other gods like El before revealing himself to us as Yahweh. This, in my opinion, has vast consequences on how we should understand other religions and their role in salvation history. Now, El is quite unique in his evasion of condemnation in the Old Testament. The rest of this series will focus on Israel's relationship with, and eventually rejection of, other ancient Canaanite gods and goddesses. Next week, we'll turn our attention to Baal. Until then, have a great day. God bless you.